Hey guys, Ryzen here. In this video, I'm going to talk about day 2 of ceremony, which happened on a Tuesday at Soltara. Welcome to the channel. On this channel, you'll find meditation mixes, original art, and talks inspired by psychedelic experiences just like this one. So let's jump right in. So from the night before, I didn't fall asleep until 3 a.m. The schedule for the second day of ceremony went like this, and keep in mind, this was a Tuesday. So at 8 a.m., there was going to be some morning yoga. 9 a.m., there was going to be breakfast. 9:30, there was going to be individual consultations. And at 1 p.m. there was going to be lunch. Now at 6:30 we would have pre-ceremony yoga, and at 7:30 we would have ceremony 2. So that is the complete schedule for day 2. Okay, so 8 a.m. there was supposed to be some morning yoga. And I didn't wake up for that because the night before, or that same morning, I didn't get to sleep until 3 a.m. The clothes I had worn to ceremony were kind of gross. They were coated in puke, sweat, and tobacco smoke. So the first thing I did was to use the provided walkie-talkie in the room and ask about laundry. Now luckily, laundry was provided every Tuesday and Wednesday, and that day was Tuesday. My body, when I woke up, felt oddly light. I didn't feel any nausea from the night before. I felt really good, even though I had just 5 hours of sleep. I felt kind of great. I felt really connected to myself. I could feel that the darkness that I had struggled with, that I had meant to cleanse with my intentions, was, dare I say it, no longer there, at least in that moment. Now, my thoughts were a little bit doubtful about this, and I found that the best way to quiet those types of thoughts is to meditate and just sit with them. So I meditated for about half an hour, and eventually they dissipated. Eventually I was just left with thoughts of gratitude, and I also felt feelings of optimism. What's strange is usually during the work week, I'd have aches and pains in my body. For example, I'd have pains in my back, but this time around, I didn't. Physically, my body felt great, energetic, and healthy. Now, from this experience, or from my experience, there's something about a purge that really cleanses the soul, but also helps the body. The green jungle outside my room, I noticed, was being lit by the morning sun. The jungle birds were chirping, and I could hear the bugs. It was a glorious new day. At 9 a.m. it was supposed to be breakfast time. So I walked down to breakfast, and they had fruits, papaya, watermelon, pineapple, and some bread thing. They also had fruit juices, and the bread thing, I'm not too sure what it was made of, but it was very delicious. So at 9:30 a.m., individual consultation started. This is where we would meet individually with the facilitators and the shaman couple and share our experience from the night before. We were to meet them at the Maloka. I looked on the board and I saw it was 4th on the list. I had to go in at 10 a.m., so I walked down to the Maloka to wait for my turn. I started to walk down to the Maloka feeling refreshed from the healthy fruit breakfast. The day was beautiful, the sky was sunny and blue with some fluffy clouds. I entered the Maloka. In front there were 2 shamans, the shaman couple. To their right were 4 facilitators. And there was one facilitator who translated for the shaman couple. Among the facilitators was a gentleman who had worked the door from the night before. The translator facilitator asked me to recount my experience, so I recounted the following. So that night I had a very challenging night with many types of purging, mostly puking, and every time I puked up dark worms into a bucket. And at first I saw a dark tower made out of geometric shapes, and at some point I saw a floating tree with teeth for roots eating the darkness streaming from my body, and up from that tree there were streams of light intertwined with twinkling lights, and to me it seemed like the tree was eating my darkness and then converting it into light and sending it up into space. And the shaman said that the tree represented my body and I was cleansing my darkness. He said that he saw a little bit more darkness stuck in my body and that he would get it out tonight for sure. And he laughed an easy laugh. I told them about rainbows surging in and out of black clouds and how I felt that this represented light overcoming darkness. And I described my other visions. I told them that I felt significantly lighter and I felt like I was filled with joy, which I was, and I felt new. The maestro then told me that I had a little bit more healing to be done, and again the maestro reiterated that there was a little bit more darkness left and we would work on that. The facilitator that was translating then asked me if I wanted to stay with the same dose, and I said that I did, even though I had taken a little bit more than the regular dose that they had us start with. After my 10 a.m. consultation, which really started at 10:10 because they were running a little bit late, we had some free time before lunch, which wasn't until 1 p.m. The rest of the people still had to do their consultations. Feeling light and happy, I walked back to my room. The walk back was so hot and the sun was beating down on me. So by the time I got back to my room, the air conditioning felt like a blessing. I sat down on my bed and I journaled, and I also drew my various visions from the night before. I always make sure to capture my visions in full colors, so I brought some colored pens and crayons with me. I was amazed at how clear and HD the visions were the night before. I know they call ayahuasca the TV of the jungle, or something along those lines. But the night before, the visions were indeed crystal clear. Thinking about it, they were much clearer than some of the mushroom trips I've had in the past. I felt like the visions on mushrooms were a little bit fuzzy and they could go by a little bit fast, and the visions on mushrooms seemed to veer towards showing me mostly fractals. In contrast, the ayahuasca visions, it was more like visiting other worlds and landscapes, just beautiful and full of light and color. So, by 1 p.m., it was lunchtime, so I walked back down to the dining area, and it was a wonderful, healthy, vegetable-based lunch, or primarily vegetable-based lunch. They did have a little bit of protein. I believe there was a little bit of seasoned chicken breast. Because it was going to be the last meal of the day, and because I was no longer scared of purging, I ate a ton. I figured the extra healthy food might make my purge a little bit easier, since my stomach would have something to process and let go of and puke up, instead of dry heaving. So that lunch, again, it was great. On the menu was a beautiful light green salad with tomatoes, some flatbread made out of beets, I think, and this was my favorite, as well as some tropical fruit juices. And again, I made sure to drink about at least 3 pints of fruit juice and water, because I really wanted to replenish my electrolytes and be hydrated for the upcoming ceremony. So pre-ceremony yoga wouldn't start until 6:30 p.m., so I decided to go back to my room and take a nap. It's important. I felt to have strength for the ceremony. I probably slept for a good hour to hour and a half. So when I woke up, I felt refreshed and I promptly started meditating. Now before a ceremony, I like to do several types of meditation to get my mind right, and these include Artist's Way meditation, where I emptied my mind, writing down all my thoughts until my head felt completely empty. I followed that up by screaming meditation, where I screamed into my pillow until I released all my negative emotions, including anxiety, self-loathing, uncertainty, sadness, and my inflated ego. And it kind of went like this. I followed that up with a little mindfulness meditation. About 20 minutes of some mindfulness meditation. And I followed that up with some visualization meditation where I meditated on a symbol such as the sun. I followed that up by some white light protection meditation, which I listened to on Spotify. Next came the loving kindness meditation, which I had an MP3 of on my phone. I then followed that up by a rosary meditation, or just the rosary, where I restated my intentions. After all these meditations, I felt ready to go to ceremony. Oh, and I also sprayed myself with sage along with my crystal pendants for extra protection that night. It was raining right before ceremony with lightning and thunder. Luckily, the retreat center provided giant umbrellas in the room. I took my umbrella and I headed down to the Maloka. Now this felt treacherous because the hill going down was now muddy and rocky. And after getting to the Maloka, I headed in for pre-ceremony yoga. At 6:30, pre-ceremony yoga promptly started. Now the highlight from this yoga session was the chakra meditation session at the end. So during that session, we lit up all 7 chakras, starting from the root chakra, which was red, around the belly button, which was orange, the solar plexus, which was yellow, the chest or the heart chakra, which was green, the throat chakra, which was blue, the third eye chakra, which was indigo, and the crown chakra, which was symbolized by white light. After the chakra meditation, I felt even more ready to go into ceremony. So ceremony started at around 7:30. The Maloka was full of candlelight as well as the ambient orange lights of the lights surrounding the Maloka near the top. Again, participants started going up one by one in counterclockwise fashion or order around the Maloka. Now before taking my dose, I actually rethought about all my intentions and I blew my intentions into my dose of ayahuasca. The facilitator asked me how much I wanted for my dose. I said I wanted 1.25, and he said he had a dose that was a little bit more, 1.33. And I agreed to take that dose, so I had a little bit more that night. I sat back down on the floor, or on my bed on the floor, and I waited for the Icaros to start. They turned off all the lights completely, and I started just meditating on my mat, and I waited for the feelings of sickness and purging to come. But you know what? They never came! Going in, I also stated, along with my intentions, I asked the medicine to be gentle with me and to give me beautiful visions. So maybe that's why the purging never came, or maybe I had done all my darkness purging the night before, but the purge actually never came on night 2. And just sitting there meditating, sometimes I would open my eyes and I could see that I could still see the dark forest when I closed my eyes. And as the vision started, I started seeing beach scenes at night. When the visions really started ramping up, they started off with a little bit of geometric patterns, but they really jumped to different places that night. I saw a snake coming out of a waterfall with a rainbow. I saw a detailed starflower pattern lined inside of a cathedral where it was continually spinning. There were eyes with tentacles floating from them. And I started floating through this mountain range towards black space filled with white stars in the background. Then I had this vision of being in space, and there was a floating village in space. But this floating village looked futuristic, and there were plants growing from the buildings in space. Now, as these visions were happening, I was writing all of this down in this trance state in my notebook, and I would later look at it to remind me of the visions that I had. And again, I didn't really feel sick during the ceremony. I actually felt a really deep clarity. I could see by the moon which was out. And I felt like the moon was blessing this ceremony. And it no longer was raining, but thunder boomed in the distance, and lightning lit up the Maloka. Through it all, the female and the male shamans were singing their ikaros. And sometimes, boom, there'd be a clap of thunder. The experience was just completely magical. At one point, I had a vision of a dark castle wrapped in rainbows in the sky. One of the major visions I had was a giant female snake swimming in a giant lake with pink flowers, and it felt so real. Now, this vision started off with the form of a body in water. It was like a close-up of the body of the snake, and I could see the patterns. First I thought it was a canal, it was swimming in a canal. Then it zoomed out and I realized it was a giant snake with pink flowers, and the snake was swimming in and out of the water, and sometimes it would magically hold its body up from the lake. And again, this was a huge giant snake, and I would talk to it and I paid it respect and I sent it love. And it really stayed with me for a while. I had other visions of black skies, waves, moons. I had a vision of a giant green glowing heart, a giant green glowing brain just pulsating in the darkness. I saw a female figure with a mask. The mask was adorned with pink flowers on the side, and the figure was naked, floating also in the giant lake, and I thought I saw a caterpillar body and multiple pairs of breasts. And then the body morphed into a normal female body. I had a vision of being on green stairs, ascending up to a palace, and when I looked down at the stairs were not only green, but they were flecked with rainbows. When I finally got to the pink palace, I looked at the palace, I looked at the walls, and again, they were flecked with rainbows. And the front door of the palace, from the front door of the palace, there was a golden light. I opened that door, and there was a room filled with gentle, flowing colors. During the ceremony, The shaman started going around the room and singing a personal ikaro to each of us. Then the male shaman got in front of me, and I was so filled with love and joy that at first I started bobbing my head, then I started moving my shoulders, and I was so filled with love and joy that I started dancing, respectfully of course, while sitting down. And I was spinning my arms out and throwing rainbows out into the room. And I also did the same thing when a female shaman came down, and I really felt like they appreciated the energy and the love I was trying to give back to them. Now, some of the major messages I received that night were, "You are loved." And the best thing is, I felt like I was loved. One of the messages was, "You are forgiven." And again, the best thing is, I felt like I was forgiven. And I kept asking, how could I follow my true path and my true will? And one of the major messages I received was heal. Now, I'm not too sure what that means. I'm still unpacking that, and I'm still in the integration phase. But I'm sure it will unfold as time goes by. So at the end of the ceremony, I was so full of love and light and strength that I simply just got up after the shamans left, of course. I simply just got up from my bed and I walked back to my room, and I had a wonderful sleep. So that was day 2 of ceremony. Alright, so that's the end of this video. In the next video, we'll cover day 3 of ceremony. But if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like or hitting that subscribe button. Or consider sticking around on the channel to listen to some music and enjoy some original art. Link to any reference material for this video should be found in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'm Ryzen. I'll see you later.